No sound. I'm not hearing any audio.
I have no idea.
That's at least how it used to, you'd get the
the whole one. This is Australian pine, and it's also called ironwood. When I started cutting it, I told the guy he was a liar when he told me it was pine, and he had good basic stuff, and he paid me. So now he's paying me more, because this takes forever to cut this stuff. But there's some of that back there in pen blanks and some other long pieces. This is another piece out of that same stuff.
Yeah.
It's not done, so you get an idea what the grade is like, and I was trying to leave a.
Somehow we got ourselves moving.
Defect in it, or
Okay.
not, I put off. And then. Oh. I don't know if anybody ever uses melt paint or chalk paint or whatever, I did that, and I liked the way the chalk shows the grain through. And if I sand it a little more, I think I'll get all this grain through completely, because it was like that earlier, but I'm still experimenting with that. Even just the.
What it is, yeah.
Chalk, oh, the wood,
The wood.
butternut.
Oh.
It wouldn't matter, I don't think, though, what I was more interested in is the feel of it with the chalk paint and the way you can see transparently through it. So then, the last thing was, this is both of these were done with a chainsaw on the lathe. First successful chainsaw lathe work I ever did. And so, that's the first one. My buddy thought he had it, so that's it. And this is the one that was done a little different. But same thing, and then it's dyed with a high gloss finish. And then I put a frog in the top like this. And found these. All this crap was alongside the road.
Right.
If you were hung up in
Oh, that's.
the ice cream.
Oh, that was the Lord pulling back.
Gas or electric? Chainsaw, gas or electric? Chainsaw, gas
Oh,
or electric?
electric. Yeah, I want your gas inside. I do a lot of stuff I shouldn't do, but not.
So do we have a volunteer to run the wood raffle? We'll sell tickets at break and then do the raffle at the end of the meeting. Thanks. He, okay, but yeah, teach or otherwise work together. Susie can fill you in. And it's simple. So tickets are $1 a piece or 6 for $5. And at the break, you'll be able to have an opportunity to buy that. So. All right. So our guests prepared, ready? Who's on first? So we have 2 guests tonight. Well, 3 actually. 2 speakers. Emily Runbeck and Colleen Bolin. And Colleen brought her daughter as well. And she is an aspiring woodturner. So she's fascinated by this process.
Good catch.
All right. Thank you guys for, well, hopefully my arrow keys will just move me through the presentation.
All right.
But I want to thank you first for allowing me to take some of your time to talk about Freidens. I was here last year with Colleen. This was the first year that Freidens, the nonprofit, we run a family, or excuse me, a network of food pantries in the Milwaukee area, kind of took over the Empty Bowls event from Milwaukee Empty Bowls, which was a separate nonprofit. So they kind of had reached their goals in terms of the money that they had raised over the years and transitioned the event to Freidens. We had previously been a beneficiary of some of the funds that they had raised in previous years. So that was the first year I was here, and happy to meet all of you and see the really interesting, beautiful work you do. and made some new connections that I'll talk a little bit about. So first, I just want to mention that this year's events, 2023, will be on October 8th. I'm not sure whether or not there's a Packer game. I know we were waiting to see, like, whether the schedule would come out so that we could basically schedule around that. Last year, we were able to do it on a Sunday that there was no Packers game and the weather was beautiful. I'm not sure if anybody attended, but it was a great event. We did it outside at the Fiserv Forum. This year, though, we're going to go back to the Kern Center, which was that's at MSOE, and that's where Milwaukee Empty Bowls had previously been doing the event. So that enables us to, basically hold the event regardless of what the weather is, and to host a lot of additional restaurant vendors so that there's a wider selection of soups to try and other, accompaniments like different breads and beverages to go with it. So we're excited about that, and hoping to get a big group together again, the way that they were able to before the pandemic kind of changed operations. So we're excited about that. So if you have any interest in attending the event, it was a lot of fun. And all of the funds go towards supporting Freidens, and we're a nonprofit that basically provides food for people to secure. So basically, as I mentioned, in 2022, the event transitioned from Milwaukee Empty Bowls, which was a separate nonprofit, to Freidens. And in this picture, there was some social media done, and Sophia is in the middle and Colleen is on the right-hand side. They did a little bit of a some media to advertise the event. Sophia is our executive director, and Colleen basically manages all of the donations for of the clay bowls, which is the vast majority of the bowls that we have donated for the event. So today I just want to talk about like a brief overview of Freidens. The event provides some very direct appreciation for your past donations, and tell you a little bit about how that helped us be successful last year, and basically ask for your participation again this year, and revisit the event details. So Freidens, well, just a little bit so that you understand why I'm here. So I was previously a board member for Freidens, and I just turned off the board in January. But I had basically served for 7 years as a board member, and volunteer here and there, and learned a lot about the organization and also about food insecurity in Milwaukee. Basically, a lot of people who haven't been in that position may assume that food stamps and other government provided aid should cover what anybody would need if they weren't able to make enough money, or were out of work for whatever reason. But the facts do not back that up. Essentially, like the most that someone can get who is on food stamps for a family of 4 is $180 a month. So obviously you can't feed a family of 4 on that amount. So that's basically that gap that's left, is the gap that food pantries fill. So we believe, the organization believes, that there's enough food and community in the world for everyone to thrive. And we think that both of those elements are really, really necessary for people to feel fulfilled and be happy and healthy. So we basically live that out by creating spaces where people can come together, get their basic food needs met, and also to build community. Basically, we are Milwaukee's largest network of community food centers. We have 4 different locations. And Emil, I'm sure you know, in the back, is a longtime volunteer at our Dispensa location. And you were just saying also that you've been at Zion Rock, and I'm sure have been to the other locations here and there too. So we have 4 different locations across the Milwaukee area, and all of those are in areas where there's a lot of poverty and need. It generally is about where about 30% of the families that we see have children and have food insecurity.
Doesn't work, okay.
just a little bit
Yeah.
briefly, Freidens, the organization, started out of a church in 1978. We've since kind of dropped that affiliation. But basically, regardless of how the organization has changed or the affiliations, we've always kind of found a need to, or recognize the need in the community to provide basic resources to people who don't have access to those. And it's been, in the time that I've spent at Freidens, it's more than just providing food into the community and supporting people with dignity. So, this just gives you a little bit of information about some of the things that we do besides the food distribution. The stock box distribution is for seniors who are food insecure. That's a government program that we facilitate. And we also provide a lot of volunteer opportunities, employment training, and some other necessities. Then, just to give you a feel for kind of how we fit into the larger network of organizations. So we receive some funding from the United Way. We also work with Feeding America to purchase food in bulk at lower prices. And then Hunger Task Force, we also get some food from. So if you've ever donated to Hunger Task Force,
That's cool.
some of that food may have come through Freidens. We are like a distributor essentially. We also recover food that would otherwise go to landfills from grocery stores. And we work with local foundations, universities, high schools, etc. To basically most of our organization is volunteer run. So every Saturday, Emil's there with a bunch of volunteers, basically running the whole operation, making sure that everybody gets checked in, that they get what they need, and that they're treated well and feel like they are in a safe and comfortable place. So Empty Bowls, Walking Empty Bowls, the nonprofits, hosted the annual event previously, and they raised funds that were then granted to different other nonprofits that were addressing food insecurity in Milwaukee. We were one of the beneficiaries of those funds. They reached their goal of raising over $1 million over the 23 years that they held the event. At the event, basically, we have a huge selection of uniquely crafted bowls that are donated by local artisans, including some of you. So we have both the wood bowls and we have ceramic bowls that are created by Colleen and her crew and all the people that she knows. They're just beautiful, just out on the tables when we're having the event. At the event, besides getting a bowl, attendees can enjoy a sample of different soups that are created by local chefs to give them, just some variety of exposure to different restaurants maybe they haven't tried, or caterers. These are some of on this slide are some of the chefs that we had prepare soups last year. And we also had some live music and auction and some beverages for purchase as well. Last year, we had over 1,800 bowls donated, which is just phenomenal. Like, if you think of the time that goes into, turning a bowl, or, basically throwing a bowl on a pottery wheel and then glazing it and firing it, like, that's a huge, significant contribution that goes into that. And the people that come to the event really, really love it. Last year was the first year I was able to attend. And people were just like, they go every year. It's quite an event. We had over 1,000 people who actually attended, and we raised over $67,000. So it was a huge success, and it was so helpful to have all of the people who previously had run the Milwaukee Empty Bowls event volunteered for our event to make things go really smoothly. So it was really helpful, and we're gonna make some small changes to make sure that things go smoothly and better this year, even more than last year, but it was still helpful to have that whole team. So specifically, your group donated 79 handmade bowls. That's the number that I have. And the value that we were told is like over $2,000. So that's a lot of time and energy and artistic talents that you guys contributed, and we're very, very thankful. And I'll tell you that personally, I was at the check-in tables for a good portion of the event. We had people lined up like over an hour before the event so that they could be first to pick out their bowls, and they were like most of the bowls that were most quickly snapped up were the wood bowls. And I mean, I think that just the beauty and the artistry that you guys put into these, it's so clear why they're so special. So this year's event is at the Current Center, as I mentioned, that's on MSOE's campus. Downtown is just like a little bit north and east of downtown. And again, we're gonna have the option to purchase a bowl for $30. And then with that purchase, you'll be able to select your bowl. You'll get 2 soup samples from, that you'll be able to choose from all the vendors that are there. And then you can also purchase additional soup sample tickets. And then there will be beverages and an online silent auction. So I want to say thank you again for your time and for all of your contributions over the years. It really makes a huge difference, and we can't have this event without the bowls. That's where all this value is created and shared. So a huge thank you from Freidens through me to you, and I look forward to unwrapping the bowls at this year's event and to see all the beautiful things that you guys create. So thank you.
She said everything I could possibly say.
Oh,
Wondered if you could perhaps just remind everyone what you're looking for in terms of a wood bowl size and no cracks.
Oh,
all of that.
I would not be so
That's not
specific. I think, like, me personally, I think like the smaller bowls can actually be really, I mean, as somebody who likes to make food for people and to, entertain people, like having little bowls that you can put, chives or salsa or something in, it doesn't necessarily need to be a soup bowl. So like that is always a fine standard, but like also the bowl that I picked out last year, I have on my counter just as a display. Like, I just think it's so pretty. It's art to me. So like, I don't think any specifics about that it has to be watertight or anything like that is I wouldn't let that constrain me, honestly. Something else. Oh, I did want to mention, so at the last event that I spoke at, Mel and Michelle, they were kind enough to invite me over to Mel's workshop, and I actually got to throw a bowl. It was the greatest thing. It was so fun. I got a lot of help, but I made a little maple bowl, and it's beautiful. I mean, I'm sure like in comparison to these, but it's like your first bowl. But that was so kind and lovely, and I really appreciate that. And so like that type of sharing of community and your knowledge and skills, it's just representative, I think, of how we can build community just with anybody that we meet. So I want to thank them for their gracious a willingness to teach me that. And I actually now have a lay of my
Okay, well, thanks, Colleen, your last chance.
I just want to thank you all for donating. So I'm just so grateful to have a wood bowl. So people truly, truly love them, and they look forward to them. So thank you.
Right, yes, right, so. So this, for me personally, this is number 99 right here. No, that's not right, that's number 98. We're gonna do 99, I was gonna do 99 tonight, it's not gonna work out. So, we pledged 150, I think we're gonna make that, and Steve brought in 46.
We have,
And
and he's way there.
Yeah, we're already there. Yeah, we got that. And don't let that discourage the rest of you, okay? You know, empty bowls are. There's kind of a little competition between Steve and myself. One year he'll make more than I do, next year I'll make more than he does, but. This is how it is, but they're fun to make, you know, maybe after break, and I'll show you how I do it. That's not the right way to do it, it's just the way that I do it. You'll see some shortcuts.
What is the last date of January?
Your event is when?
October.
Yeah, it's the 8th of October, but I think we're going to be sorting that Friday before. At my shop, so at 71st Field, we're gonna be sorting them before they get
We
packed
could
up on
probably-
Freidens trucks.
We could probably turn them in at the October meeting, because if Sunday is the 8th, that means we will have had our meeting sometime that week.
Our October meeting is second, so if I brought him in on the third,
Perfect,
Tuesday,
perfect.
okay,
Cool,
so October will be the last meeting.
October meeting. All right.
This one.
You can make
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I worked that thing last year, I helped set up the band and my son had it. I was there, I was looking at all the bowls. I did not see any wood bowls, and there was 79 bowls. Disappeared so fast, I did not know there was wood bowls down there. The ceramic ones were beautiful, but evidently it was wood ones. I did not see any idea.
You could find him in Emily and Molly.
Well, maybe that's where they are. I was all over that place.
The neighbor was over yesterday and we were explaining what empty bowls was, and I think I'm gonna try to make the event this year. I think I'm gonna try to get down there. So, even if the Packers are playing, I'm not that big a fan. I'm not, you know. All right, so we're gonna have a wood raffle, got a lot of interesting looking stuff back there. Susie and Mike are gonna sell you tickets, Mike's gonna learn how to run the wood raffle. And let's take a break and try to start up again by 7:30. That's 20 minutes, that's nice and relaxed, pretty. Have a little fellowship with your fellow wood learner, thank you, I was mind talking to you. I would raffle.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Right. All right. All right.
You guys, we
So,
got.
one should never start.
Yeah, I push the cord right. Yep, good.
One should never start a demonstration with an apology. But I have all kinds of them. I told a number of you I was gonna turn an end grain bowl, an end grain footed bowl. And I apologize, I just wasn't ready to do it. I got wrapped up in a couple other things. I thought I was gonna have a bunch of time to prepare today, and it turned out today was the day we mowed the lawn. My part of mowing the lawn consists of about half an hour of push mowing, a little bit of weed eating, and the weed eater wouldn't run. And it just went downhill from there. I forgot Ron's bowls. I forgot 2 of the bowls that I was gonna bring to demonstrate with. This is what I was gonna do, only in an end grain, make a little footed bowl, just something a little different. There's a few of them. up here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So what I've done is we're gonna do 2 quick turnings. I'm gonna show you how I rough out a bowl. And then I'm gonna show you how I fine tune a bowl. And then we have a 3rd one to put on the lathe to show you how to decorate. So I'm frantically looking here. My demo bowl disappeared. Okay, it's back. All right, so we a bunch of the club members and I got together last fall. We milled some bowl blanks. My preferred bowl blank for doing an empty bowl is 3 inches thick, 7 inches in diameter. I prefer a mill bowl blank. I don't, whatever. There's a couple things that's nice about that, to have a nice milled piece of wood. What I have here tonight is I have a piece of mulberry. It's not the best wood on earth, but it's cheap and it smells wonderful. And it's not milled. In other words, it doesn't have a nice flat back, but there's a good 3 inches here, and we should be able to make a nice 3x7 bowl. So I'm going to show you how I rough out a bowl, and we'll get started without a lot of further ado. Okay, so I use these little plywood rounds that I've cut out. They have a hole in the middle. If I've lost track of where center is on my 7-inch round, I find the center and I mark it with the scratch. And then I use a spur drive to start this guy between centers. One of the things that I thought I had in my toolkit tonight was like a large diameter spur drive. It's not there. I hope that I left it in my workshop. We've already gone around the yard once today looking for something that relates to the weed eater. Well, this is kind of the fun part of wood turning. For those of you that are newer or guests, this is a heavy duty lathe, so we can put quite a bit of pressure between the tailstock and the headstock. That's what I'm doing. We don't have that pressure on there, then that spur drive tends to turn into a Forstner bit. I know that some of you guys have been there. This is meant for entertainment, not instruction. This is going to be pretty straightforward. When we get into turning out the roughed out bowl, then we'll talk about some shortcuts that I take. Down.
A question. Does it always take you this long to rush one of these on?
Yeah. In case you think this is my invention, I learned this from David Ellsworth. Not the whole roughing out thing, but how to end up with a nice clean tenon on the bottom of your bowl. Without having to use a chisel and a mallet.
Tony, maybe could you describe it from that third side?
So if you were watching, I took my detail gouge and I started taking wood away from the tenon until I just had a very small diameter left at the bottom of the tenon. And then at the same time I hit the stop button, I pushed into that and it just sheared that little cone right off the bottom of the tenon.
You got it dry, blank, dry?
No, this is wet. That's a good, thanks, Dave. So I twice turned and I turn almost all my bowls wet and then come back later and turn them dry. And that's kind of what I'm trying to show here tonight. So thanks for asking that. That's an excellent question. So what I forgot to, well, we'll talk about it a little bit. I might have left my tenon a little big, but we'll get.
It had to be wet, otherwise you would burn your hand with shavings.
Yeah,
Come off pretty hot with it, but.
I timed myself on a couple of these and sounds like an Amber Alert or something.
I'm lost.
Senior alert, yeah, we're all.
So this is probably a little more than 3 inches, so we're gonna be peeling some of this away here to try to get rid of some of this wood. In fact, I see I've got a crack here. This is for demo purposes.
What service you're on?
Well, the rule of thumb is to leave a wet blank 10% of the diameter, wall thickness being 10% of the diameter. So if we know this is a 7-inch bowl, that means we want it 0.7 inches, roughly 3/4 of an inch. And we want the bottom to be about this, maybe just a little less. So it's rough. I don't care about finish cuts. I mean, all I want to do is just get that bowl roughed out. And then I picked this up online from a guy, but it's worked for me. I like to round the sharp corners off to remove any stress risers. Stress risers are why you always trying to fill it in a row on a crankshaft. So that mean a lot to some of you. Any sharp edge on a piece creates the possibility of a stress riser. And as these dry down, if we take the sharp edges away, it may help to reduce cracking. So again, this is a demo. That's a rough turn bowl. I timed myself on a couple of them. It was taking me about 7 minutes to do them. So, all right. So if that, when I get this home, if I still care to, I'm going to use a technical term here. I use this for a couple of things. I schlock a bunch of anchor seal on it. And I don't pay, I mean, you know, you can dab a little on the end grain if you want to. I just schlock the whole thing, throw it in the pile. And in about 6 months, it's ready to return. So that's what I forgot to bring tonight, was one that was dried down and ready to turn. So I picked a dry blank out of this box here. And we're going to have to pretend that this has a lot of wobble in it when I start, and a lot of outer roundness, even though it doesn't. But I can still show you the steps that I do and talk a little bit about why I do what I do. So anyway, there are some dry blanks here if you want to turn some empty bowls. They came from Rick Erdman's wife, and some guys brought them in. What was the last meeting? A couple of minutes ago. Feel free to help yourself. That's not part of the wood raffle.
So Tony, that will really have dried out around, you might not be able to get it back on this spot.
That's a good question, but that's one of the shortcuts that I take.
Squeeze this like a sponge here.
So Susie says, well, if it had dried out around, could I just chuck it back up? And the official answer is no, but it works. It works for me about 95% of the time. So this particular chuck, the jaw on it, if you want to, is not a dovetail jaw. It's a straight jaw with a hook on the end. This is a record power chuck. And Nova makes their small jaws in a similar manner. So when I take one of these and it's been schlocked up with anchor seal and it's all waxy, I'll set it in the chuck like this and I'll start turning it. And then I bring it down and then it starts scraping all that anchor seal off. And then when I can't turn it anymore, then I'll go ahead and tighten it up. So it's a shortcut because I'm trying to do quite a few of these. That's one of the shortcuts. Thanks, Sue. That was a good question.
Hey, Tony?
Yeah.
I find if I'm doing something special with a longer one or something, the outside of the rim might be way out of round when I chuck it there. If I bring something up from the tailstock, jig,
Right.
and center it with that, so you're not removing so much of the rim, you'll later have to adjust your foot a little bit because it won't fit in there.
Right.
Chuck exactly.
Right. And so that kind of brings up another shortcut I'm doing. So conventional wisdom says that to turn this dried down blank, the first thing I do is I mount it against the jam chuck, which may or may not look like my vacuum chuck here. Conventional wisdom says the first thing I do is I mount it like this, turn a nice true tenon on it, and then turn it around. On these 7-inch bowls, I don't, I want to, I'm trying to make time, okay? So that's the next shortcut, is I just chuck the bowl up, wobble and all. And that's why I say you kind of have to imagine that. Now, every once in a while I run across a situation where I have to true that up. But I have learned that even if I have to true my tenon up, I still leave the wobble on the outside of the bowl. I don't know if I can explain that or not, but I've gotten to the point I like having as much mass as I can out here while I turn and sand the inside of the bowl. The more mass I have out here as I turn that and sand, the more mass I have in the wall of the bowl as I make my final cuts on the inner wall of the bowl, the less sanding I end up doing. Because I end up with less chatter. This works for me. Don't expect it to work for you, but on these small bowls, it might be something you can try. So the next thing I do is I come up here and I look at my thickness of my bottom. Because you saw how accurately and scientifically I measured everything when I roughed that out, right? So I want to know how much I've got here, because it's going to make a lot of difference on how much I take out of the bottom. All right. Some all I do is clean the bottom up. Some I take out 1/2 inch or more. So that was my large bowl gouge. I'm going to a smaller bowl gouge, and this one has a relief on the back of the bevel. Next step is sanding. So when I use the larger bowl gouge, there's some weird grain in here. I'm still getting some tear out. I use that small gouge with the relieved bevel. Very little tear out, if any, left. There's a little lip at the edge here that would take some extra sanding, but that'll sand. Well, here's the next shortcut.
What's the relief bevel?
It's just when I sharpen the gouge, after I've sharpened it, I move the arm on the Wolverine in 1/2 inch and run a secondary bevel. And what that does, here's a picture from the last workshop. So your gouge is coming down the side of the bowl here, right? And a grinding wheel naturally puts what they call it, a hollow grind on your gouge. And what that means is if you leave that hollow grind on there, there's more than a little possibility that the tail of your bevel is going to be leaving tool marks in the wall of the bowl. So the relief bevel keeps that from happening. You knew that all the time, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't.
Okay, so here's my next shortcut. I'm blessed to have a vacuum truck at home. This is the same life center that I have. It happens to be a robust. I've tried this with other life centers. It works as well. Robust has a nice taper here that just happens to come in and center on my chuck almost perfect. So if I want to check and see if it's running true. Even though there's a little bit, there is actually just a tiny bit of wobble here. Probably didn't get chucked up the same the second time. But my dial indicator here on the inside of the bowl is running true. Okay. So are you gonna turn it with that chuck on there? I'll take the chuck on it. But the vacuum is holding my piece onto the vacuum chuck. I am, however, going to bring my tailstock back up against the bottom of the bowl. All right.
Tony, you have the center pin out of the life center? You have the center pin out of the life center?
Yes, sort of. It's a robust life center, so you loosen the set screw and just push it in. It's still there. It's not lost.
How many inches of vacuum are you really comfortable with? When you run the vacuum?
Ron asked, how many inches of vacuum am I comfortable with when I run the vacuum? This is pulling 20 inches right now. On everything except the red elm, that's pretty typical. Some of these black walnut bowls will pull. I mean, it's like right next to 29 inches. It's almost a perfect vacuum. These guys are interesting. This red elm stuff. If I haven't, there's some that I didn't anchor seal. That's a different story. I'm lucky to get 5. And if I do that, all I do is I take the chuck off very tenderly and then bring the tailstock up. But to finish the bottom, then what I do is I start sanding. Because as soon as I start sanding, then my vacuum starts to rise. Because the sanding dust fills the pores. Well, when my vacuum comes up, then I'll clean the bottom. Okay. So, yeah.
Hey, Tony, how's oak? Does that, those big openings ruin your vacuum too?
Who turns oak?
You're okay if it's white oak.
Yeah, white oak's not bad. I won't turn red oak anymore. Personally.
It's not that much fun, I hear.
I've tried one piece.
All right. So what we're gonna do here. Again, normally this would be like all wobbly and everything. So this looks a lot easier than it goes at this point. So that'll sand. That's in case I want to mount it again. Have a mark that's centered. So this is when I walk around and put my, oh, that one didn't take very long. Put my sanding discs away, turn the. So the way that I do it, conventional wisdom would be for you to establish the outside of the bowl and then to shape the inside by following the outside. That's the way I do big bowls, money bowls, if you will. But for these couple, 3 shortcuts there, make them go quite a little faster. Turn them around at least one less time per bowl. And I have one little bit left to show you here, hopefully. I may ask for that bowl back. But I brought a bowl in that's all sanded out. I thought I would show you how I decorate it. I said it's sanded out. I did this in a little bit of a hurry today. I'm not particularly proud of it. Well, just in case you're under the impression that these twice turned bowls stay round. They don't. Oh, I didn't have that one.
Oh.
Yes, even with that mark in the bottom. Yeah. I'll talk through it. So I see those pictures of those really pretty ceramic bowls with all the designs drawn in them and everything, and I think, man, after a while, round and round doesn't do all that much for you anymore. It ain't much, but I do decorate these a little bit. Most of the ones that you see here are done with the Wagner tool. This has a little knurled wheel on it. Yeah, we'll give it a try. So, and I run into similar situations at home. So the trick with the Wagner tool is to have the thing tilted at about a 30 to 45 degree angle. And you want to come at the bowl perpendicular more or less to the face of the wall. And that wall is curved, so perpendicular is a moving target. And this one's a little lumpy, so we want to slow it down a little bit. So because that wall is curved, I want to swing ever so slightly. I want to swing the tail of that tool back and forth a little bit. And if you can see it, I don't think they've got the overhead camera working.
Yeah.
When I swung it, it wanted to walk a little bit. And then I take my 3-corner tool. And I turn the speed up quite a ways. This is not gonna look great, but anyway. And I just go in. And put a couple little grooves, so now I have a textured decoration on the edge of my bowl. And actually, it could look a lot worse. Then on the bottoms. Almost forgot to turn that guy on. Even when I'm using this guy, I do try to have the tailstock up against the bottom of the bowl. Just because I'm putting pressure on the side of the bowl in kind of a weird way. So first I'm going to make a little bead. To do that by pushing in twice here and then just bringing the tool over. Now, that looks very simple, but that tool has a tendency to want to escape a little bit, which you will learn after you do one or two. Well, one thing I was going to mention. Well, the ones up here that are painted, that's done with a Sharpie paint pen. Elmer's paint pens don't work. Sharpies do. Sharpies have a bigger tip and the paint flows a little better. And I just leave them on here, get the paint to flowing, and then let the bowl spin past the tip of the pen. And then I come back in with this guy and clean the grooves up. So you get just a little bit of paint flow into your groove. It makes it look a tiny bit better. So that's how I do an empty bowl. Any comments, questions? If you aren't on our email list, one of our former members has a Powermatic 3520 for sale. I think it's a decent price. Because it includes all his turning tools and base plates and trucks and everything.
Just write a check on it.
We do the wood raffle. Okay, if you're new or a guest, the wood raffle is kind of dismissible, all right? We're holding a ticket. Stay around. If you're not holding a ticket, thanks for your attendance. It's been great to see you. And hopefully we'll see you next month. This meeting is an extended show and tell. We did this back in January, it was very successful. So bring the piece in that you're working on, that you worked on, bring in a tool that you've made, and we'll take time for a long show and tell, a lot of fellowship, no real formal program. So, it'd be a good meeting. Thank you.
That's it. Shut it down. How many days we got some on? This would be 6. What was our total? 7 at the minute. Oh, that's.